Ever get that feeling like you're just drowning in choices? You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
It's like with all this information and all these different ways to live your life,
Yeah.
it's kind of hard to figure out, like, what actually matters.
Right.
Today, we're going to dive into some pretty interesting ideas from Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. But don't worry, we're not going to, like, lay down the law or anything.
No.
We're looking at the intro to the book, actually.
Okay.
Written by Dr. Norman Doidge.
Right.
He's a psychiatrist and psychoanalyst.
So kind of setting the stage before the main act, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. And what's cool is that Dr. Doidge, he starts by talking about how much we all resist rules.
It's true.
Like instinctively.
Yeah, he even brings up that story about Moses
Oh, right.
coming down from Mount Sinai.
With the 10 Commandments.
Yeah, the 10 Commandments. And he finds all the Israelites, like, worshiping a golden calf.
Wow. Yeah. That's a pretty powerful story. What do you think it tells us about, like, how we view rules?
Well, Dr. Doidge, he thinks it shows how much we're kind of torn about the whole thing. Like, on the one hand, we all want to be free, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Nobody likes being told what to do all the time.
Exactly. But then, if you look back through history,
Yeah.
it's like when there's no structure at all, things kind of fall apart.
Okay.
Dr. Doidge uses this phrase, aim low.
Aim low.
Yeah, like those Israelites just dancing around their golden idol.
Oh, I see what you mean. Like, we get so focused on instant gratification, we kind of lose sight of, like, the bigger picture.
Exactly. So it's not about being totally shackled by rules,
Right.
but finding that balance
Yeah.
between freedom and structure.
Okay, so it's more like, what is it? Like trying to sail a ship without a rudder.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
You might feel free, but you're probably going to end up lost.
Exactly, and probably shipwrecked.
Right, exactly. Dr. Doidge actually suggests that having structure can be good. Like, it can actually reduce anxiety and give people a sense of purpose.
Especially, he thinks, for millennials.
Oh, interesting. Why millennials particularly?
Well, he argues that they've kind of been raised with all these conflicting ideas about what's right and wrong.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's like they're kind of unmoored, you know?
Yeah. It's like, on one hand, there's this whole idea of moral relativism.
Right.
Like, there's no absolute truth.
Exactly.
But then that can leave people feeling kind of lost, like they don't have a compass.
Yeah, without any direction.
And then on the other hand, you see these really rigid ideologies popping up,
Right.
offering these simple solutions to, like, really complex problems.
Yeah, but those can be dangerous too.
Right. It's like picking between two extremes.
Exactly. And that's what Dr. Doidge is warning against, both extremes. It's like, like being caught between this chaotic sea of uncertainty and like a really rocky, unforgiving shore. So where does Jordan Peterson fit into all of this?
Yeah, good question.
Well, Dr. Doidge kind of presents him as this bridge between those two extremes.
Okay, so we're not talking about, like, blind obedience to dogma or anything.
No, not at all.
So how does he approach this then?
Peterson.
Yeah.
Well, as a psychologist, he combines what we know from science
Okay.
with insights from philosophy and literature.
Like who?
People like Aristotle, Nietzsche, even Dostoevsky.
Wow. Okay, so pretty heavy hitters.
To offer, as Dr. Doidge puts it, a roadmap for navigating life's challenges.
I like that. A roadmap. It's a
Yeah.
good way to put it. And what I find interesting is that, like, he's not shying away from the hard stuff either.
No, he's not.
Like, he acknowledges that suffering is just part of being human.
Absolutely. And instead of trying to just avoid it or pretend it's not there,
Right.
Peterson says we should actually confront it head on.
Huh. That's interesting.
He even compares it to the hero's journey.
Oh, like in mythology.
Yeah, you know, where the
Wow.
hero has to face all these trials and tribulations, and they come out stronger and wiser on the other side.
I see. So it's like, by facing our challenges, we actually grow.
Exactly.
It's fascinating how he connects those ancient stories to modern psychology.
Yeah.
But isn't that kind of a contradiction? I mean, on the one hand, he's saying we need structure and rules. But on the other, he's saying, like, embrace the chaos and uncertainty of life.
Well, I don't think it's a contradiction so much as a balancing act.
Okay.
Like Peterson suggests that when we take responsibility for our own lives, like, get our own house in order,
Right.
we develop the strength to deal with those inevitable challenges.
So it's more about taking ownership
Yeah,
rather than playing the victim.
precisely.
Yeah.
And this is actually where Dr. Deutsch's own experiences kind of add another dimension to all this.
Okay, how so?
Well, as the son of a Holocaust survivor, he's got this deep understanding of the dangers of ideology
Wow.
and the importance of critical thinking.
Right, because if you just blindly follow any ideology...
Exactly. You can end up in some pretty dark places.
Yeah. That historical context really makes you think about individual responsibility in a whole new light. But of course, you can't talk about Jordan Peterson without,
Yeah.
addressing the controversy.
The elephant in the room.
Right. And Dr. Deutsch doesn't shy away from that either.
He doesn't.
He actually suggests that a lot of Peterson's critics just misunderstand him. Like they're not really getting what he's trying to say.
Yeah. He sees Peterson as this champion for personal responsibility and freedom of speech.
Someone who wants people to have these tough conversations, even if it leads to disagreements.
Yeah. So instead of avoiding controversy, it's like he embraces it.
Huh. Okay. But to be fair, Peterson's ideas are definitely nuanced and complex.
They are. And Dr. Deutsch actually cautions against taking his words out of context or reducing them to just sound bites.
Right, which happens a lot these days.
It does.
But let's get back to the book itself. Dr. Deutsch really paints this vivid picture of Peterson's teaching style.
Oh, yeah, it's great.
He describes him as this professor who is, both intellectually rigorous, but also super engaging.
Oh, yeah, even down to the cowboy boots.
Cowboy boots. Really?
Yeah, Dr. Deutsch even mentions that.
That's pretty funny. So it wasn't just these dry lectures like reading straight from a textbook.
No, not at all.
He actually made these ancient ideas come alive for a modern audience.
Exactly. And his classes were packed.
Wow. So what was it about his approach that really resonated with students?
Dr. Deutsch thinks it's because Peterson was willing to talk about the stuff that most people shy away from.
Like what?
The meaning of life, suffering, personal responsibility.
Heavy stuff.
It is, but he didn't sugarcoat anything. He just provided a way to understand it all.
So instead of trying to protect students from the hard parts of life, he actually encouraged them to face it head on.
Precisely. And this brings us to one of Peterson's most interesting ideas. The idea that we actually all want to be judged.
Wait, really?
Yeah, even if we don't always admit it.
Huh. I never thought about it like that. It seems kind of counterintuitive.
Yeah. I mean, in today's world, everyone's always talking about self-acceptance.
Right.
And, avoiding judgment.
Exactly. So how does that fit with wanting to be judged?
Well, think about it. We ask our friends for feedback.
Okay.
We want to be recognized for our work.
Yeah.
We even crave validation online.
It's true. Social media is all about that.
Right. So maybe there's this part of us that wants to know where we stand.
Okay, yeah. I'm starting to see what you mean. It's like we have this need to be measured somehow.
Exactly.
So how does Peterson reconcile this need to be judged with all this emphasis on self-acceptance?
Peterson's idea is that it's not about, going out and looking for criticism. It's more like understanding that we have this need to be assessed. And by knowing our strengths and weaknesses, we can be more self-aware.
So it's actually a tool for growth.
Exactly. And he connects this back to that hero's journey idea.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, think about it. The hero faces all these challenges, right?
Right.
And goes through a transformation. And part of that is confronting hard truths about themselves.
Which you could say is a form of judgment.
Exactly. It's not about seeking negativity. It's about being open to feedback.
Even if it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, because that's how we grow.
And become better versions of ourselves.
Right. It's about pushing those boundaries. And that's really at the heart of Peterson's work.
Embracing responsibility, confronting our limitations, striving for more.
Yeah, all of that. Which is probably why he's so popular with people who feel lost.
Makes sense. He's not afraid to give people a little push.
Encourage them.
Speaking of pushing boundaries, Dr. Deutsch talks about this party he went to.
Oh, yeah, at his friend's house.
It's a great story. Really shows how Peterson could just pull people into these deep conversations.
Yeah, Wodak and Astera.
They were Polish immigrants, right?
There were. Grew up under Soviet rule.
So obviously free speech wasn't exactly encouraged.
Not at all. And they were having this party specifically to have these open, honest discussions.
And they invited Jordan Peterson. Figures It seems like he's always at the center of these thought-provoking conversations. What happened at the party?
Well, Dr. Deutsch describes Peterson just diving into these deep philosophical talks.
With everyone, even people he'd just met.
Especially people he'd just met. It wasn't like he was being arrogant or showing off.
So what was it then?
He was just genuinely curious and passionate. He had this way of making everyone feel like their opinions mattered.
It's not easy to create that kind of atmosphere.
Especially when you're talking about these really complex issues.
But wait, didn't we just say that Peterson thinks we crave judgment?
That's a good point. Maybe it's not about no judgment at all.
But the kind of judgment.
Maybe. Like, at this party, it wasn't about tearing people down.
Right.
It was about challenging them to think critically.
But in a supportive way.
Yeah, exactly. It's like there's a difference between judgment that's meant to control you or put you down.
Versus judgment that helps you learn and grow.
Right. So, back to the party. Dr. Deutsch also talks about Peterson's house.
Oh, yeah, I remember this part.
It was just as interesting as his conversations.
Apparently, he had this huge collection of Soviet realist paintings.
Yeah, who knew? You wouldn't expect a psychology professor to be into that.
It's kind of a strange combination. What was the deal with those paintings?
Well, Dr. Deutsch explains that Peterson wasn't collecting them because he admired Soviet ideology.
Right, because that would be weird.
It was actually the opposite. He wanted to be surrounded by these reminders of what happens when you give up critical thinking.
Oh, wow.
Like when you just blindly follow an ideology.
It's like he was using these paintings as a warning.
Yeah, a visual representation of the dangers of totalitarian thinking.
And this brings us back to that idea of individual responsibility.
Right. Peterson believed that if we want to fight chaos and tyranny, we have to start by confronting our own inner demons.
Like our own capacity for self-deception.
Yeah, and blind obedience.
It's a powerful concept.
Yeah.
It's easy to get overwhelmed by everything that's happening in the world.
And feel helpless.
Right. But Peterson's saying that real change starts with us.
With each individual.
By taking responsibility for ourselves.
Cultivating our minds.
Living according to our values.
Yeah, that's how we make a difference. Even small acts of courage and integrity can have a ripple effect.
It's like that saying, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing.
Exactly. Peterson was basically saying we all have a responsibility to create a better world.
Starting with ourselves.
And maybe that's why his message resonates so much with those millennials that Dr. Deutsch mentioned.
The ones who are searching for structure and guidance.
Yeah, maybe they sense that something's missing.
In this culture of moral relativism.
They're craving a sense of purpose. A set of principles to help them navigate this complex world.
And that's what makes this deep dive into the introduction of 12 rules for life so interesting.
It's not just about the rules themselves.
It's a bigger conversation about what it means to be human.
It's recognizing that the search for meaning is a journey.
A lifelong journey.
And one that we have to approach with courage, honesty, and a willingness to face our limitations.
And Dr. Deutsch seems to think that Jordan Peterson, despite all the controversy, offers a valuable guide for that journey.
He definitely presents a unique perspective.
And one that's worth thinking about. Even if you don't agree with everything he says.
Exactly.
And speaking of those rules, it's interesting how Dr. Deutsch points out that the word itself can be off-putting.
It can.
Especially in today's culture. We're all about rule-breaking and individuality.
Yeah, and pushing boundaries.
So talking about rules in a positive way can feel kind of strange.
Definitely. But Dr. Deutsch argues that these rules are different. He even suggests maybe guidelines would be a better word.
But ultimately, they are rules, right?
Yeah, they are. Rules that require us to take responsibility, confront our weaknesses, and strive for something more than instant gratification.
So they're more like signposts.
Yeah, pointing us in the right direction.
Helping us navigate the complexities of life.
Exactly. They're not commandments.
But a call to action.
To engage in self-discovery and growth.
And that's what's so compelling about Jordan Peterson's work.
He's not giving us easy answers.
He's challenging us to embrace the messiness of life.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like he's saying, life's an adventure, sure, but it's also a battle, so here's how to,
gear up.
Yeah, arm yourself. So to kind of wrap things up here.
Yeah.
What are the big takeaways from this deep dive into the intro of 12 Rules for Life?
Well, I think one of the biggest is that rules, or guidelines, as Dr. Deutsch puts it, they can actually be freeing. They give you a framework,
right,
for dealing with all the complexity of life and for personal growth.
It's funny because at first it seems like the opposite, right?
Yeah.
But if you think about it, having some structure can actually free you from
Yeah.
all the endless
Their
choices
pressure.
and the anxiety that comes with that.
Right. And it's not about blindly following someone else's rules. It's about finding those principles
Yeah.
that fit with your own values.
Taking ownership
Exactly. Another big takeaway is that balance.
between moral relativism and rigid ideology.
Yeah.
It's about critical thinking.
Individual responsibility.
And that ties back to Peterson's point about, confronting our own biases,
Hmm.
being willing to have those tough conversations,
Even when they're uncomfortable.
because that's how we grow.
Right. When we challenge our own perspectives.
And lastly, I think this deep dive really shows how important self-awareness is.
Absolutely.
Knowing your strengths and weaknesses,
Inner motivation.
what drives you.
And ultimately, recognizing that we're all capable of both good and evil.
That's deep
It is. And it's about knowing that we all have a part to play.
in making the world a better place.
It starts with ourselves, yeah. But it goes beyond that.
To our relationship,
Communities.
the world as a whole.
Exactly. So, like Dr. Deutsch suggests, maybe Jordan Peterson,
Yeah.
despite all the controversy,
Yeah.
he offers a good map for this crazy journey we call life.
He does give you a lot to think about.
He does.
This has been a really great discussion,
Yeah.
definitely given me a lot to ponder.
Me too. It's amazing how much there is to unpack, even just in an introduction.
That's the whole point of the deep dive, right?
It is.
To really dig in and find those hidden gems.
Use insights that help us understand the world.
Understand ourselves a little better.
And maybe even inspire us to live better lives. Remember that question we talked about?
The one about wanting to be judged.
Yeah. How does that challenge all this emphasis on self-acceptance and avoiding judgment?
It really makes you think.
It does. Something to ponder as you go about your day.